When you play the Game of Thrones, you
Subscribe and like.
or you die. There is no middle ground.
Alright, hello YouTube, and welcome back to the Grease Combs YouTube channel. And today's video, we're going to be doing a video that was suggested to me on Stream Chat. So again, great place to give me video ideas if you have some, or if you want to leave them in the comments. But Ander, I hope I'm saying the first part of your name right, I'm not even going to try and pronounce it all, asked me to do a video doing how would I do Season 5 and or adapting A Feast for Crows and Dance with Dragons into the main show. So this to me is where they really stopped adapting the books, was about Season 5 for D&D, where they very loosely took plots from the book and either changed them or went this way or that. The only couple ones that stayed kind of the same was like Jon and Daenerys for the most part. They more or less stayed the same. But a lot of the other plots took massive changes. Tyrion's plot was massively different. Dorne was massively different. The Greyjoys, Sansa was majorly different. Arya's was different as to they gave her much more screen time. Like the books, she doesn't actually have many chapters in these two books. So what I'm going to try to do is do a very faithful adaptation and go through how I would adapt Feast for Crows and Dance Dragons into Season 5. Now I'm going to give you guys a disclaimer right off the bat. There is no way you can fit these two books into one season. It's not possible. So what I have decided to do, because I know this video is already probably going to be decently long, is I'm going to do this video talking about Season 5, and the next video will be Season 6. So Season 5 is going to be like the beginning half of most of our plots. So for the most part, what I try to do in this video and this season is try to get to the mid-climax for all of our main plots. So, for instance, I'll just give you one for instance right now. I would say Tyrion's mid-climax is when he's kind of figured out who Young Griff is and everything going on there on the boat, and then he gets captured by Jorah. That is, like, I would say his plot climax of the book. So that, for instance, is how, and we'll talk about a lot more because I'm going to try to expand on certain plot lines that even the book didn't expand as much on, because I think there are important characters and really awesome moments that we could see on television that could be so awesome and even have more of an impact. And I'm going to reference a lot in this video about Oberyn Martell and his significance in one season and how much he impacted and how he became a fan favorite in one season. I'm going to try to do that with other characters that maybe were not a big portion or were not a big character in the earlier seasons or weren't even mentioned. So another disclaimer is that certain things in this video were very hard to do based upon how Season 4 ended, prior seasons not really establishing any of this stuff. So, a quick one, for instance, right? In the book, Robb already knows that Balon Greyjoy is dead, right? That's what gives them a lot of hope for taking back the North before the Red Wedding. So, if we were going to go off this logically, the show should have said that Balon Greyjoy was dead in around Season 3. Anywhere in, like, the middle part of Season 3 is where this logically should have happened. But because they didn't do that, and they also don't mention it in Season 4 either, it's now left to Season 5 to kill off Balon. And the show actually went completely different from this, and as a whole as well. We don't even get the start of the Greyjoy plot until Season 6. So you can see how this creates a lot of issues because of things they did prior. If you also look at other characters where they should be, things that should be established already, not established. Asha or Yara in the show should be at Deepwood Mott, right? She should be holding that for the Greyjoys in the north, right? That's one of the other major places that the Ironborn capture. So what I'm trying to say is there's going to be some things that we're going to have to try and retcon and or try to improve off of the show. And at times this is easy to do. At times this is very difficult to do. There's something that's going to be at the very beginning. I'm going to illustrate how I want to start the season. That might not add up timeline-wise with prior seasons, and that's because D&D are stupid and made the wrong decision. But I'll talk about it when we get there. But before we get deeper and we go through every single plot line, if you guys like to like, subscribe, and comment, please do it up, share, go reach your appeal that might like this content as well. Also, let me know if you guys do want to see the part 2 of this, because that will be talking about Season 6. If these videos do well enough, I will consider basically doing an entire rewrite of the series if you guys want. I don't know if I want to go that far because, again, we don't have book materials. So just be me basically making up the story. And I don't know how much I like that. So the first thing I want to do to establish season 5 is I want to keep up with the theme of cold opens. We have some of the best cold opens in Game of Thrones, where we have the White Walker stuff in season 1. In season 4, we have Tywin melting down ice and making it into 2 swords. Really good cold opens. So I want to continue that trend. So you guys might be thinking, what is your cold open going to be? My cold open is going to be basically Lady Stoneheart. What I'm going to have happen is I'm going to have, again, this is hard to do because Arya, to this point of the show, has not had any wolf dreams. So it's actually kind of very difficult to do this. So instead of it being a wolf dream, because again, we don't have really any establishment of that earlier on in the show, we're basically just going to see this through Nymeria. Not like through her eyes, right? Not like Bran. We're just going to see this through Nymeria. She's pulling Catelyn out of the river. And we're going to see all the Kiss of Life stuff. And we see Catelyn arise. More or less as Lady Stoneheart. So that's going to be the beginning of Season 5. Because not only does it set up a very intriguing season just right off the bat, it too is a very cold open where there doesn't really need to be any dialogue in this shot to really establish what the season's going for. And I know what you guys might be thinking. Well, the Red Wedding happened over a season ago. How are we going to do this? And I'm going to be honest. I don't care about the timeline at this point. If D&D can say that Daenerys forgot about Euron's fleet, then I can add in a plot line that ties Brienne's story together, Jaime's story. It needed to be there, and D&D took it out for some stupid reason, and then decided later on to basically throw it in our faces with the Hound pissing in the river. Don't even get me started there, but we're going to do it, and I want to do this. It's not going to have a huge impact on this season, right? This season's not going to really have anything going on with that. It will impact next season. But that'll be the first thing I wanted to talk about, because that's going to be the season opener. Now, I will say, as I'm going through this season, I'm not going to be talking about specifically what is in every single episode. I'm going to be giving you guys a rough outline of where each character needs to go in this season and what needs to happen. So Tyrion. Let's pick up with Tyrion. So at the end of season 4, Tyrion has been put on this boat. He's in a barrel with Varys. Or not with Varys, but Varys has put him on said boat with the barrel. What we're going to see here with Tyrion is that it doesn't really matter if he has a conversation with Varys after this, but what we're going to see is he ends up with Illyrio. Again, this doesn't need to be explained to the show audience, right? Because Illyrio and Varys are friends. We see this in season 1. Doesn't really need to be too much explained. Like, you can have, Illyrio saying he's a friend of Varys's, whatever. So this is kind of how the first half of this season is going to go, where you have Illyrio and Tyrion. I could see them being together till maybe episode 3 or 4. And what I really want to explore with Tyrion, and I know that the show went the route of him being a good guy, and we can still do that if the show wants to go that way, or HBO wants to go that way. But what I would do here is I would have Tyrion exploring himself a lot and self-doubt in himself, and very much in a depressed cycle, where he's not this character that, he supports Daenerys, now he's found this newfound hope. He should be someone that is a bit more negative. He's a pessimistic now, right? Where he needs to be proven, it needs to be proven to him that you are a good ruler, not that he just takes it as at face value, right? And I want to really show that, especially when we get to young Griff, who has a claim to the Iron Throne, quote unquote, later on. Having Tyrion kind of understand and figure out who young Griff is and if he's a worthy leader. So that is going to be what Tyrion's arc is going to be kind of about. Tyrion's 3-season arc, because again, he's not going to meet Daenerys in season 6. That'll be a season 7 thing. But what that arc is going to be about is about Tyrion kind of going through his battles in his head and exploring him as a character, right? And going through this arc where he comes from being a depressed man who's broken, he really doesn't have much left to live for, to where he finds his renewed faith in Daenerys, where he talks with people, sees what good she's doing for the world, and becomes one of her biggest supporters later on in season 7, because again, we will not see that in season 6. Or season 5 is going to follow the formula that Tyrion, he's going to be with Illyrio to about, let's say, episode 4. And then he's going to be with young Griff up until episode 9 or 10. And I want the big reveal here to be in episode 9. I know it's a bit different where Tyrion figures out who young Griff is, and then we get a bit more time for Tyrion to be with him. But what I want to really happen is Tyrion, and especially because this works as a TV show, it works much better to have a reveal way later on in the season, like in an episode 9, is that we find out that young Griff is Aegon, Rhaegar's child, in episode 9. And Tyrion has been kind of studying Aegon, and this whole time there's just seems something like there's something up with young Griff and Griff. And in episode 9, Tyrion figures that out. Now, there are things we're going to have to cut out with that storyline. It's just how it has to be. There's so much going on to put into this season that inevitably some of the stuff with Tyrion and that plotline probably will get cut a little. Not a lot, but a little. And we can still have all of these moments like the attack of the Stone Men. We can still have all that happen, but just have it happen without Tyrion knowing who young Griff, and maybe having the suspicion, but us, the audience, it's not confirmed to us who this character is until episode 9. And then episode 10 would have Tyrion, and he goes into a brothel, very similar to the way he does in the book or even the show, and he gets captured by Jorah. And that would be the end of his arc in season 5. And season 6 would pick up similar to where Tyrion and Jorah, they have their little adventures together and all of that. And we'll talk about season 6 in another video, but that would be more or less Tyrion's arc in season 5. Tyrion would definitely be a major character and focus of season 5, especially because he is a fan favorite of the show. If you're looking at after season 4, he was probably the second most popular character on the show outside of maybe Jon. I would say Daenerys was probably the third most popular. I don't know. Maybe let me know what you guys think on that, but he definitely will have a very large screen time. Now, my next problem, so let's move on to another one of our major characters. I had a lot of difficulties with putting where Daenerys would be, because Daenerys and Tyrion's plot lines need to more or less match up. And the problem with this is the time is going to get a little messed up because of the way they set up the seasons earlier on. And the way I would have this is you have to find a good midpoint for Daenerys' arc. Where is that? And Daenerys, to me, does not have a great mid-climax, because you want to have her climax at the end of season 5 and have like the middle of her arc. And there just really isn't one. I think Daenerys, a lot of her seasons, is going to be similar to the show, but just more in depth and exploring more things within Marine. And Dany is really going to struggle, and that's going to just come to a climax at the end of season 5. And she's going to give her kind of proposal to Hizdahr where, hey, if you can have peace, there's no killings, I will marry you. Now, we're not going to have the marriage in this season, right? The marriage and all of the fallout to that decision is going to happen in season 6. So that's kind of where I choose to split Daenerys' story. For a lot of reasons, because you can't go too far, right? You can't go into Hizdahr is married to her now, because there's not a lot that happens. I mean, there is a lot that happens after that, but it's in a very compact amount of time. And if you look at our Tyrion plot, he just now gets done with young Griff at the end of the season. So Dany is a very hard character to write into this season, and I said here that she is going to have a very limited role in these 2 seasons, because she just doesn't have a lot going on when you look at all the other characters and other plots I really want to elaborate on. She's going to have a very limited role and probably will have her least amount of screen time in the entire series. But that's okay, because after season 6, she will have probably the most amount of screen time. So let's move on to the Jon Snow plotline. We're kind of hitting our big 3 characters. Jon Snow is going to be a heavily focused character in this season. He is someone that we're going to look at the hardships of trying to deal with Stannis, trying to be neutral, whether he should be neutral, should he accept the offer of Stannis to become Jon Stark, almost said Snark, and helping Stannis to retake the North. That's going to be something that's going to weigh heavily on Jon. And other things that we want to see with Jon's character in this season is, how is he going to go about ruling being the Lord Commander. How is he going to go about dealing with friends? How is he going to deal with, how are we going to feed all these people? What are we going to do with the wildlings? What are we going to do with that whole plot? And the way I think about it is this is going to be a major build-up season. And this is going to be probably, even with me making the season as best as I think it can possibly be, if you look at it from a television show, season 5 will definitely be the least entertaining of the 5, because this is going to be a build-up season, right? This is taking on all of our plots and where all of our characters are developing and throwing it into one season. And it sets up season 6 to be one of the greatest seasons of television history. But season 5 is the season where we have to see characters develop, growing, and a lot of this is taking them at the middle of their arcs. That's kind of how they're going to end in season 5. So that's why I think a lot of this is kind of hard to do. So Jon's plot would end when Stannis leaves the Wall. It's Jon's final decision to not take part in the war, even though he helps Stannis. He tells Stannis, you can go get the support of the clans, go attack Deepwood Mott, show that you're willing to help retake the North, and, drive out the Greyjoys. And Stannis leaves. And this is Jon's last chance to be a Stark. It's his last chance to get revenge on the Boltons, or so it seems anyway. And this is where Jon really focuses in on being the Lord Commander. It's very similar to how in season 1 or book 1, Jon fully commits to being in the Watch. He has this decision where, does he help his family or does he help his brothers at the Watch? And that's going to be a very similar parallel arc for Jon, where this is the final nail in the coffin to, he's not going to try and avenge his family or help his family. He is going to be the Lord Commander, and he's going to try and make the Watch as best as it possibly can be. The King's Landing plotline will have probably the most amount of screen time in this season, which again is not really anything new for Game of Thrones, but it is going to be our main focus. So we have a lot of things going on, right? We know that Feast for Crows, Cersei is a major point of view, and I really want to key in on that. I want to focus in on Jaime and Cersei's relationship, how it kind of deteriorates throughout the first half of this season. And the big, huge thing here is that in the show, in season 5, we get the walk at the end of the season. The way I want to do this is I want to have Cersei be imprisoned by the end of the season. So we're going to get a lot of development with her character, seeing how she tries to rule, seeing how people view her as a woman and how she's really not able to rule, and really going into Cersei's psyche and how she deals with the ruling. And then we're also going to see this from Jaime's point of view. We're going to see this where Jaime is like, what is she doing? Like, she's making terrible decisions. She's alienating all of her allies. And that's what we're going to show, is that's going to be the main conflict of King's Landing, where it's showing the divide between Jaime and Cersei. That's going to play a huge role later on in the story. And eventually, just like in the book, this is going to lead to issues, and Jaime is going to be sent to command the armies in the Riverlands, and that's going to be what happens there. And I wanted this to happen around episodes 7 to 8, because I don't want to get to the River Run plot yet. I want to keep that and save that for season 6, because I'm loading up season 6 to have all of our big moments. It's going to have all of the amazing moments from Feast for Crows and Dance Dragons. I'm not saying that season 5 is not going to have some of those. Like, we're going to have some great ones when it comes to the underrated plots of Feast for Crows, like the Dornish and like the Greyjoys. That's what's going to be a real big switch up for people in this season, is that everyone's used to Jon, Tyrion, Daenerys having the big moments, and they still kind of do, right? Tyrion's going to have a major moment where he figures out who young Griff is. But a lot of our big moments are going to actually come from different characters. They're going to come from characters like Euron, Victarion, Asha, going to come from characters like Arianne. All new characters we're going to have to introduce in this season, that I think is going to really spice this season up a little bit. So where I think Jaime's arc ends is that we will just get a little bit of his journeying and setting up a River Run's conflict within season 6. That is where he's going to go. He doesn't have this big moment that we're going to end on for him. He's just someone that's going to start his adventure in the Riverlands, and that's going to be his role. And yeah, I'm going to be completely honest, guys. I have no idea how to write Bran's character. Because the problem is, Bran should not already be at the cave. And season 4, the finale ends with him making it to there. Doesn't make any sense. It happens way too early. So what do you do with Bran's character now? We have a very limited amount of stuff that can happen with Bran. I don't know what to do with him, if you guys want me to be honest. Let me know what you guys think. What would we do with Bran in season 5 and 6? Because again, at this point, all we get from Bran is he learns some things with Bloodraven. He gets this paste that awakens his powers. It's probably Jojen, by the way. So what would we do? Would we just show him learning? He would, either way, he would have a very limited role. We could go, what they ended up doing in the show is just not having him in season 5, which I don't mind because I'm not a fan of Bran's plot. But what do you guys think? Let me know. Do you guys think it makes sense to just have Bran kind of left out for a season? Where he's just kind of learning, studying. We just implicate, maybe we have a scene or two in the season where it just implicates he's learning, and then season 6 we have him kind of awakening his powers and all that. I don't know. What do you guys think on Bran? Because Bran's a hard one to do because, again, they screwed up the timeline for when Bran actually gets to the cave in the show. So yeah, let me know what you guys think on Bran. So the Greyjoy plot to me is the one where we have to make up the most amount of stuff because just fitting in the timeline, it is hard to do. So the Greyjoy plot for me is going to start like this. So Asha, we know at this point, is still on the Iron Islands, right? So I think what we're going to have happen is Balon is going to inform Asha that she needs to take command of their forces at Deepwood Mott. You can make up an excuse like the commander died or they need more leadership and Balon wants his only daughter to take command and show the Greyjoy power because Robb is dead or this or that. Just make up an excuse to send her there, more or less. So not only does this make sense because it gets Asha away from the Iron Islands for the Euron stuff to happen and then she has to come back, it would also give us some time to study Balon's character. Because I don't want Balon to die right away. I want Balon to die around episode 3 or 4. Because what this will do is it'll give us time to explore some of the other Greyjoy characters. And we can do Victarion one of two ways. We can introduce Victarion earlier on, right? We can show him at Moat Cailin. We can kind of understand who he is as a character. Or we can wait until after Balon dies and we can get Victarion learning the news. And that's maybe our first indication of him. Maybe we have it where Balon dies and we have Aeron Damphyr saying who will take up his throne. And he lists like Victarion, Asha, Euron. Maybe we have something like that happen instead. But what I want to see from Balon, and the reason I'm giving him a couple episodes before he dies, is the idea that I want to explore Balon as a character a bit more. I think this gives us a perfect opportunity to do that. Because Balon is not someone that we get a whole lot of in the book, and we don't get a lot of him in the show either. Let's figure out, like, explore, like, what is his true plans for the North? How is he reacting to everyone kind of dying, like all the kings dying? What is he going to do? Like, what's his plan? Like, what's his whole idea here? And I'd love to get into understanding more of the Greyjoy's religion as well. And I think this gives us the opportunity to do that and kind of build upon that in the first couple episodes. But like I said, let's say episode 4, he dies. It can be the ending thing. And what's key here, and what I want to be vastly different from the show, is that we don't actually know who kills Balon. It's going to be it's going to be very similar to the way it was on the show, but instead of seeing the person's face, it's just going to be a hooded figure. We don't know who it is, and Balon dies. And then later on, we're kind of led to believe maybe it's Euron, but we don't know. Very similar to the way the book does it, where it's like it implies Euron did it, but we're not actually completely sure if he did. It's not 100%, and this also opens up other possibilities as well. So I think that is how Balon would die in episode 4. Now, episode 5 should then focus on all of our characters learning this information, processing it, and figuring out kind of how they want to do this. So we can introduce Victarion at this point if we would like. We could also introduce Damphyr at this point if he's not already been introduced. I think he should be introduced at this point already. And episodes 6, 7, and 8 should all be kind of focusing on the build-up to the King's Moot and seeing going around the politics of the Greyjoys. I want to focus a lot on the Greyjoys in these couple episodes because this is going to be kind of our big moment, right? In episode 9, I would really love to be the King's Moot. That's going to be our big event where Euron takes the throne. And I think it'd be a really awesome arc. I think it'd be our biggest moment of season 5. And that would lead us to episode 10, our finale, which would just be wrapping up plots. You know, it'd be Asha is going back to Deepwood Mott, kind of in fear of Euron. Victarion begrudgingly serving Euron. And talking about what they're going to do in season 6. What their plans are, and how Euron plans to move the Iron Fleet. And that, to me, would be a great Greyjoy plot for season 5. I think it would do a great job. I could get more specific into this, but that is just a broad outline of how I'd want their plot to end up going, and hopefully we would do it justice, not like D&D. All right, continuing on. Also, yes, I did switch shirts, and this is a completely different day than I'm picking up on the next part of this, but yeah, I just want to let you know for those guys that like to be like that. Now, Davos' plot is another interesting one because, in my opinion, we have to split it up in a way that makes sense, and also I think we're going to change a bit. We're not going to really change the source material, but we're going to add scenes to the source material to kind of expand his plot a little bit and make it to where the thing that I want to happen at the end of the season, which is Davos basically being imprisoned by Wyman Manderley and the Manderleys, and that whole conversation where Wyman's putting on kind of a show for the Freys, I want that to be the end of Davos' arc in this season. Because one, it would leave on a nice cliffhanger of, okay, what's going to happen to Davos? And then I want all that to happen in episode 8. So what we would see is in episode 9, right before Cersei gets imprisoned, maybe they have like a small council meeting. You know, there's a little bit of dialogue that says, oh, the Mannerleys executed Davos. We get the whole thing like we get in the books, right? This would just happen a little bit later in that timeline. Again, timelines get a little messed up in the show, and that's just based upon how far the show is in some plot lines in like season 4, but how far back they are in others. And that's just kind of what we have to work with. So what I would have Davos doing at the start of this season is he's with Stannis, right? And the books did it a bit differently. The books did it where Davos is already away from Stannis. We don't see their final conversation, and he's just on his journey. What we're going to see in the season 5 part of this show is he's going to be with Stannis for maybe episode 1, episode 2. Stannis tells him, okay, you need to go get the support of the Manderleys, go to White Harbor, and try your best. He does that. We see his journey, very similar to the book. If we don't have time, we can kind of cut out some of his stuff and just say he ends up at White Harbor, episode 6 or 7. We have the whole meeting with the Manderleys. Davos gets imprisoned, and that's the last time we see him for this season. So we save the juiciest parts. I think one of the best chapters is like the North Remembers chapter with Wyman Manderley and how they're piecing everything together. We'll have that in the next season, right? And we'll talk about how we're going to have to change that as well because, again, there's differences in the way Wyman Manderley would know about what happened at Winterfell just because there's a character that is missing from the show to the book. So we're going to have to just add in some reasoning as to why Manderley would know what happened there. But we'll talk about that in season 6. So that would be Davos' plot. It's pretty short and sweet. Didn't have too much to add to it because, again, it's pretty much just the book, except we add some things with Stannis at the beginning of the episode, right? And then we would also just kind of delay part of Davos' storyline into next season to kind of space it out a bit. Now, the Dorne plot. This would be my second favorite plot going into this season. Because we all see how in season 4, Oberyn is a fan favorite for a season. He gets killed very quickly. Unfortunate. So what we're going to see here in this season is we're going to see the fallout of that. And I want to spend a lot of time. A lot of plot lines I've been saying, okay, we're either going to have to, they're going to be a limiting plot, or we're going to cut it down a little. This is a plot we're going to add a lot to. This is one of my main focuses of the season. I want to spend a lot of time with Doran, with Arianne, and developing Dorne as a whole. Because, again, they've not been really developed to this point, so we need to spend a lot of time with them. Very similar to the Greyjoys, except we've spent even less time with the Dornish. So what I want to do here is I want to show the unrest in Dorne. I want to show how the public views Duran, and then also getting scenes from Duran's kind of point of view, showing maybe him talking to Arya Hoda about the situation, so we can see two conflicting viewpoints and seeing why people would maybe not like Duran's rule at this point, why the Sand Snakes would maybe be underestimating him or going against him at times. And I also want to introduce Arianne around episode 3. It'd be kind of similar to the way the books do it, where the books it's like Oberyn starts going to Sunspear, we get introduced to Arianne. That's kind of how I would do it in the show as well, just so we don't overwhelm the viewer. Because again, you have to remember, we're going to be introducing the Greyjoy plot as well, and there's going to be a lot of new characters we have to talk about in that plot. So we kind of move Arianne back a couple episodes so we can introduce her a little bit later. So Arianne is the character I want to focus a ton on. There's a couple characters that I want to have a ton of focus on in this season. She is one, because I think Arianne was one of the missed opportunities of the entire show. She, in my opinion, would have been a fan favorite character for the casual audience. Another really strong female character, and one of my favorite characters within the books, and my favorite addition from Feast for Crows. I want to spend some time with her and really develop her relationship with Oakheart. So again, this is something we're gonna have to like talk about a little bit and explain, because show didn't do a great job of exploring this. So Myrcella goes to Sunspear, right? And she also takes Oakheart with her, who is a Kingsguard. He is to be her protector. And we're going to explore that idea here. We're going to explain all these relationships. We're going to take a look at Oakheart's and Arianne's relationship and why it maybe is bad, why both these characters would be willing to do it. It's something similar to Kristen Cole and Rhaenyra in House of the Dragon. I want to spend a lot of time developing it, because it's going to hit you even more later on in the season when we have our big, plot where Arianne tries to crown Myrcella, Oakheart dies. Now, the one big thing I want to say here that a lot of people probably won't like is that I do think getting rid of Darkstar makes sense. At this point, the show has not even mentioned the Danes. Like we've gotten literally, I don't think in the show there's a single time they name drop the Danes. So the Danes are a very mysterious house, and we don't know a lot about them in the books. But the thing is, at least the Danes in the books are very much established by this point. Like we know of their household, we know why they're kind of more or less relevant to the story. In the show, it would be really difficult to explain all of that. We'd have to add a ton of scenes just to establish Darkstar. So I think what we'd have to do in the show to make it a little bit more accessible for casual viewers is I think we have to get rid of Darkstar. As much as that sucks, and I wouldn't want to do it because Darkstar is a fascinating character, I do think we would have to cut him. Now, that could have ripple effects to future seasons. We just don't know because, again, I don't want to go further when I'm adapting this show than Dance of the Dragons. I don't want to go into speculating on Winds of Winter. I'm going to try to just go with this. So again, we don't know how that's going to work out yet. And so here's how this is going to go for me, right? Episode 9. So again, we'd have a lot of development explaining Dorne, showing its culture, building up of our characters and their relationships, showing Duran as a quite reasonable character behind closed doors, like with Arya Hoda. But then when it comes to the public, when it comes to Arianne, he looks like someone that is weak, doesn't know what's going on. So what we'll have here is two very conflicting characters and or compelling characters, because we understand what Duran's doing, but we'll also understand why Arianne's doing what she's doing. So when it comes to Arianne's plot, when it comes to episode 9, episode 8 will be the planning stage, basically, which will be kind of be built up and slowly kind of built onto throughout the season. When we get to episode 9, right, the plot is going to thicken, because we're going to have Arianne trying to do her own thing while it's contradicting what Duran wants. And we've been building towards the entire season that both of these characters are very likable, and they're just not communicating well. Right? And that it's going to be something that's on a much more minor scale, where it's like, I think most people wanted the Stannis camp to win because Joffrey sucks, but Tyrion's a character we all love at the Battle of the Blackwater. So this is what I'm trying to establish here, where We have two compelling characters that just have different ideologies, and eventually it kind of blows up in their face. And we will see Oakheart die. The one thing I will say, I don't want to cut Marcella's ear off in this show version of things. One, brutalizing children, probably not a great thing to show to casual viewers. I know we're going to see some of that in House of the Dragon. Spoiler. But I think we leave that out. It's just not necessary, in my opinion, because we're still going to get the same result, right? When Cersei goes to get Marcella back, right, the same thing's going to happen. It's going to be like, okay, why did Oakheart die? And all these things. So you can still kind of go that route. And again, since we're eliminating Darkstar, we don't want to add another character in to fill that role. We're just going to take that little plot part of it out of it, which again sucks, but whatever. So episode 10 is going to be basically an idea that we're going to get a brief showing of Arianne, and we're going to see that she is being locked up. We don't know why. We're not going to get a ton of information on her. It's going to be kind of left again ambiguous and or a cliffhanger that what is going to happen to Arianne in season 6. So again, I chose to leave out the conversation with Arianne and Duran. I could see an argument for putting it in here, but I want to, I want to just space it out a little and leave some things for the next season. So then when we have Quentin next season, right, we can have a direct line. So we can kind of start episode 1 in next season with Duran and Quentin, or not Duran and Quentin, Duran and Arianne, and then that can lead us directly into the Quentin plot. So that to me is how I wanted to go about doing this. I just didn't think Quentin quite fit into this season yet. And I also don't think we need some of Quentin's journey anyway. I think there's a lot going on in this story, and we have to condense a lot of things down. But I think Quentin is one of those characters that I think we can cut out a decent amount of arc and just kind of learn about it through his storytelling to either Daenerys, this character, that, in the next season. Okay, so I actually made an error. I completely forgot when I was rewriting Theon's plot that Moat Cailin is already taken in season 4, episode 8, which again makes no sense with the book context of that, because again, the Moat Cailin does not get taken for quite a decent bit of time in that book. So what I have to do here is Victarion's plot would be a little different in this scenario. We would have to have some sort of way of Victarion just being in the north. Maybe he's just raiding the coasts of the north at this point with the Iron Fleet. I don't know. Just based upon how they screwed up the Greyjoy plot at that point, it's hard to introduce that. But I made a note here that this plot is going to be very minimalized because of how far they already are at with Theon and the Bolton plot. We need to slow them down quite a bit. So what I would have this season being about is showing us Roose with a lot of the other lords and ladies of the north. Something we didn't get a whole lot with Robb. It was kind of just like we had to kind of select a couple characters, and that was it. I would love to introduce us to more of the characters in the north. Introducing us to Lady Dustin, introducing us to all these characters, spending time understanding the politics of the north. And I think that will be a good way to explore some time with Roose, Ramsay, and Theon, and not progress the plot too much to where the timeline doesn't make any sense anymore, right? And also, I would also want to, again, bring up the fake Arya plot with Roose, because we're not doing Sansa. That's stupid, doesn't make any sense. So we're just going to say that Roose somehow got Jane pulled. We'll explain it in the show, whatever. But one way or another, that's what's going to happen. I also want to see more meetings with Roose saying, what is our position? What do our supplies look like? So you know how in the Black Council in House of the Dragon in episode 10, they were talking about their advantages, disadvantages, all their things? I want to focus on that in this season, build up the coming war in the north. And the way that this season would more or less end would be kind of similar, again, to season 5 in the regular timeline or whatever, would be that the fake Arya gets married to Ramsay. Now, this is going to be the major difference. We do not need to see the betting ceremony. So the way this will kind of end out is they'll be kind of going up to Ramsay's bedroom, okay? And what we'll end up seeing is Jane Poole kind of looks terrified. She's giving Theon looks of kind of desperation. And similar to how we saw in season 5 in the regular show, where Ramsay's like, no, Theon, you stay. That will be the last part of this scene we would see. And then in the next season, the way we would explore it and know and indoor imply what happens is just basically by Jane Poole saying, things like, Theon, he's a monster. You know what he made you do to me, right? So that would imply a couple things. We wouldn't have to see it. It'd be better for a television audience. I never felt like that sat well in my stomach when we saw it with Sansa. So to me, that makes a bit more sense. We already know at this point that Ramsay's a sick psychopath. There's no reason to show more of it and just horrify audiences at this point. Again, so this is the problem. As we're getting further down some of these characters, you really start to understand how season 4 went away with a lot of these character arcs. They're in completely different areas of the map. They're in completely different situations, and I really dislike that. It's something I've talked about in the past, is that season 5 was the season that really the problems with the show started to seep through. But season 4 is what kind of set those up in a lot of ways. So Brienne's plot, I wrote a big thing down for her, is that I wanted her to be a character that, again, is very similar in the books, where it shows the brutalness of this world, where it shows how much these wars have affected the world, how it's affected Westeros, how people have lost their homes, are starving, have been killed, raped. Everything along those lines is what I want to see. Now, again, I don't want to see people, getting brutalized, raped, stuff like that. But what I want to show is that how people have been hurt terribly because of the wars of these lords that they had nothing to do with. And I think that is a very big building point for Brienne's character. And I want Brienne to start as a character that she's kind of up there in that really high moral ground. And this kind of like 2 to 3 season arc of 5, 6, and 7 is going to be about tearing her down and seeing how much she can take of this brutal world while still trying to be this morally good character, this character that is a woman, being a knight who men just do not respect and talk down on her constantly. That is going to be kind of her arc, where she's just pushed to her limits morally and is nearly broken and killed. I think that's a very compelling arc for Brienne, and it's something that they just completely just screwed up in season 5 and just destroyed her character arc, in my opinion, especially in season 6 as well. Another thing I would want to really, really talk upon, because this is something the show dropped very quickly. I want to show her troubles with, she was the person that killed Renly. I want to, again, build upon that and show how Brienne is discriminated against because of, again, her being a woman and these things. And also because people think that she's Renly's killer without really having any evidence or even being there, just hearing stories and instantly believing them. I really want to focus on the inequality of this world and this system, because it will be a great parallel to what Dany is going to want to do and talk about in not only this season, but the next season and the seasons forward. I think this would be a great character to expand upon those ideologies that Daenerys maybe talks about. So the way I would have her character arc ending for this season would be her fight with the Bloody Mummers. She has a close encounter with death, but she overcomes it, and that will lead us into the next season. I think we get a little action scene, something that is good there for the audience, keeps them entertained, and is also intriguing, while also sticking to the source material as well. The next thing I want to talk about, it's going to be a very short one, Arya's plot. So this is something that I really noticed heavily in season 5, is that Arya had a very big role in season 5, where she was on screen a lot, but nothing particularly happened with her character. Up until kind of the Mare and Trant stuff at the end, he really doesn't do much. It's a lot of her just scrubbing floors, scrubbing dead people, doing that. She doesn't do anything in this season. And do you want to know why? Because in 2 books, Feast for Crows and A Dance of Dragons, she has like 6 chapters. She is not a major character in this season, and she should not be. Again, this is going to come up when we get to Sansa as well. Arya is a minor character in this season, right? Everything that's being built up for her is that this is a growing season. This is a season that is going to build upon her character and make her this badass assassin that it's going to get majorly paid off in ways that feel earned later on in the show. So what we're going to see Arya is going to be just showing how she gets into the Faceless Men organization, some of her tasks and some of her lessons, and then ending off, I think, with killing Daron. So this is the Night's Watchman that goes with Sam. And we're just going to go with that plot instead. We're going to have them go to Bravos for a little while, and that's going to have... We're going to change Sam's whole arc where he just magically poofs up in Old Town. We're going to have, there actually be a journey. Again, we're going to change it a little, but again, Arya is not a major character in this season. I know she's a fan favorite, and that's why she got so much screen time, but she cannot have that much time. There's nothing for her to do. This is a growing season for her, and she needs to be treated as such. Sam's plot, just touched on it. What's going to happen with Sam's plot? Well, they're going to go to Bravos. They're going to do their little plot with Arya, and the end of the season will be them leaving Bravos. It's a very quick boom, boom. This is what happens. I don't have a lot to talk about in Sam's plot. Just follow the books, and we're going to be fine. So we'll move on to the last part of this video, which is going to be the Sansa plot. Again, a weird one because there's no real midpoint to end this season with Sansa. So what I want to do with Sansa, again, is very similar to Arya. Not a lot of screen time. She's a character that is there. She's going to develop this season. She's going to watch, observe other characters, and learn. So what we're going to see in this season is how Littlefinger takes over the Vale, how he works upon cementing his control, manipulating people, manipulating the lords of the Vale, and learning from him, right? And her story, I think, ends in season 5 when Littlefinger... So we're going to have a little bit of a change here. We're not going to get the Harry the Heir and the descent from the Eyrie until next season, but what Littlefinger is going to tell us is he's going to kind of quote the Starks. He's going to be like, winter is upon us, or if we want to, we can give him the line, winter is coming, and they will have to leave the Eyrie soon. So that sets up that winter is coming, right? That's what we do in every season. We just allude more to the White Walkers are coming, while also we show that they have to leave the Eyrie. So they don't have to do it immediately, because that's what the next season is going to be about. Next season is going to be about what are their plans, what are they going to do in the future, and how are they going to descend the Eyrie and that whole journey. Sansa, again, like I said, she's not going to be a major character in this season. She's going to be a very minor character. And if you've seen the way I've gone about this video and you're starting to understand why season 5 was such a mess, let's talk about some characters that I have as minor characters in season 5, and let's compare them to the show. Sansa. Arya is a minor character. If we keep going up, Theon and the whole northern plot is a minor kind of thing going on in this season. If we continue going on, Dany is a minor plot. If we look at these characters, right, Daenerys, Sansa, Arya, those 3 characters have a bulk of screen time in season 5, and I'm telling you, they are going to be minor characters. Like there might be an episode where we just don't see them, because there's just not... When you have to split their plot point or their whole plot lines into 2 seasons, they don't have enough material, right? And the only way we can do that is if we add a bunch. And again, I'm doing this kind of as like a fanfic type, so I'm not going to add a bunch in there, but that is how I would do it. Let me know what you guys think about my season 5 rewrite. There are things that they did in season 4 that absolutely destroy the source material, make it much harder to adapt. Let me know how you guys would fix that problem. But yeah, thank you guys all for watching the video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. You guys got an extra long video. I hope you guys liked Tuesday's kind of reread summarization of the prologue of A Game of Thrones. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye, guys.
If you think this has a happy ending, you haven't been paying attention.